A new Parsun 115 horsepower 4-stroke costs about $9,900. A 2026 Mercury Pro XS of the same power runs about $11,800. And that's before controls and rigging. So, right out of the gate, the Chinese engine saves you around $2,000. And on the smaller motors, the gap gets even wider. That's the bait. And it works because somewhere in the comments of every boating video there's a guy swearing his Chinese outboard has run flawlessly for 5 years. And another guy swearing his turned into a boat anchor in 1 season. They're both telling the truth. The Chinese outboard market isn't one thing. It's a stack of brands ranging from genuinely usable engines built in certified audited factories, all the way down to relabeled junk that one trade report says got returned 80% of the time. That 80% brand is on this list, near the bottom, and I'll name it. We're ranking these from the one I'd actually put money on, down to the one I wouldn't drop in a pond. And the whole thing comes down to one factor that almost nobody selling these engines will say out loud. We start at the top, with the only Chinese outboard brand I'd tell a friend to actually consider, Parsun. Parsun is built by Saiju Parsun Power Machine in Jiangsu Province, and it sits so far above the rest of the Chinese field that it barely belongs in the same conversation. They make a complete range, 2 horsepower up to 300, with more than 200 models and variations. They opened a brand new headquarters in 2025, which matters more than it sounds because half the brands on this list are quietly shrinking, while Parsun is visibly expanding. And they carry the certifications that actually require an outside inspector to walk the factory floor. EPA emissions, CE for Europe, ISO 9001 and ISO 14001 for manufacturing. Those letters mean somebody independent audited the place. Now the prices, because this is where Parsun makes its case. A Parsun 40 horsepower EFI 4-stroke runs about $5,400. The 60 is around $6,000. The 115 is roughly $9,900. Line those up against the competition. A new Mercury 60 4-stroke sells for about $7,950. A 2026 Mercury Pro XS 115 lists at $11,800. So Parsun is undercutting the big names by $1,500 to $2,000 at every rung on the ladder. And that's real money in your pocket. The thing that makes Parsun more than just cheap is who else sells their engines. Parsun is an OEM supplier, which means they build motors that get sold in North America under other companies' names, including Coleman. When an American brand is willing to stake its own label on your engine, that's a quieter and more honest endorsement than anything in a brochure. Their smaller 4-strokes are closely derived from proven Japanese designs, and a hands-on review of a Parsun 20 against a Mercury and a Tohatsu found the Parsun came with double overhead cam construction, marine-grade aluminum, and CDI ignition at a price well under both. The catches are real. The 3-year warranty doesn't cover labor, so a warranty repair still costs you the mechanic's time. There's no real dealer network in the US or Canada, so you're either wrenching it yourself or finding an independent shop. Parts can be slow to arrive, which makes Parsun exactly right for one person. Budget conscious, mechanically capable, with a friendly local shop nearby. For that buyer, the $2,000 you save is found money. Parsun is the high point of this entire list, and from here the floor starts dropping. Drop down a step, and you reach the brand I'd only point a friend toward if they promise to baby it. Hidea. Some Hidea models run perfectly fine. The lineup is broad, the prices are aggressive, often a few $100s under even Parsun on comparable models. And plenty of owners use them for years without drama. The problem isn't day 1. It's month 13, and it lands in the same 2 spots every time. A marine service tech quoted in a trade roundup said it plainly. More than a year, and it doesn't hold up. The glands leak, the iron is raw. 2 specific repeatable failures. The seals start weeping after a season or 2, and then the worst one. Untreated raw iron components that rust because they were never properly coated for salt water in the first place. That isn't bad luck. That's a corner cut to hit a price. So, a Hidea is a freshwater, light-duty, occasional-use engine for someone who flushes it religiously and will chase a weeping seal before it spreads. Run one hard in salt water and you'll meet both of those failures faster than the savings are worth. The few $100s Hidea shaves off a Parsun is not worth it unless your use is genuinely gentle. Buy down a tier here and you're buying a maintenance project. Hidea at least runs out of the box. The next brand is one where I'd give a friend two completely opposite answers depending on which size they were holding. The brand is Hangkai, and it's two different engines wearing one name. The small Hangkai, the 2 to 6 horsepower class, is the genuine surprise of this ranking. Those little engines are fine. People buy them as kicker motors and dingy engines for a few $100s, against the $1,650 to $2,700 a new Mercury wants for its smallest 4-strokes. And they report easy starting or reliable running and a featherweight 25 pounds with fuel in the tank. For pushing an inflatable or serving as a get-home backup, a small Hangkai does the job for pocket change. One enormous asterisk applies. The asterisk is the horsepower number, which is a work of fiction. An owner who bought both a Hangkai sold as 3.6 horsepower and one sold as 4 horsepower took them apart and found they were both 50cc engines, actually producing somewhere around 1.5 to 2 horsepower. Not 3.6, not 4. Half the advertised number. This is standard across the cheap end of the market. The figure on the cowl is a hope, not a measurement. So buy the small Hangkai for what it physically is. A lightweight 2-horse motor, not for the number printed on the side. That same owner made the smart point too, that these little engines are still cheaper than a working used Johnson or Yamaha, so for a backup kicker, they earn their place. The bigger Hangkai engines are where it falls apart. As the power climbs, the build quality stops keeping pace with the load. The reliability drops, and you lose the only thing that made the small ones forgivable, which was that they were too cheap to cry over. A big Hangkai is real money spent on a thin track record. Small Hangkai for a tender, sure. Big Hangkai, keep walking. That pattern, fine when it's small and cheap, dangerous when it's big and expensive. Sets up the next group exactly. Below Hangkai sits a cluster I wouldn't recommend to a friend at all unless they came to me with wide eyes open. C-Pro, the Zongshen-linked Selva badged engines, and Seatan. You'll see all three constantly on eBay, Amazon, and Alibaba at prices that look impossible to pass up, sometimes half of what a Parsun costs. The trouble lands in the same place for all of them: frequent breakdowns. And the real killer? Serious difficulty sourcing spare parts that actually fit when something lets go. That parts problem is what converts a cheap engine into a total write-off. An engine that breaks but can be repaired is an annoyance. An engine that breaks and can't be repaired because the part doesn't exist is just money you lit on fire. And a few $100s you saved up front is gone along with the whole engine. There's a name trap in this tier that costs people real money. Selva, the Italian company, is a legitimately good engine builder, on the level of Tohatsu and Yamaha, and their engines are priced accordingly. But the Selva name turns up attached to budget Chinese-built engines in various licensed and joint arrangements, and a buyer sees the word Selva and assumes Italian quality at a Chinese price. Read the listing carefully. If Selva is showing up at a budget Chinese price, the price is telling you which Selva it actually is. This tier is for the buyer who has fully accepted they may be holding a disposable engine. Everyone else, keep scrolling, because the bottom of the list is where the genuine traps live. And at the very bottom is the one I'd physically stop a friend from buying: Yamabisi, plus the swarm of no-name brands it travels with. Yamabisi is the 80% brand from the start of this video. According to trade supplier reporting, Yamabisi engines have been associated with return rates as high as 80%, with buyers describing breakdowns shortly after purchase. Sit with what an 80% return rate means in practice. 4 out of 5 people who bought one wanted their money back. That's not a budget engine with trade-offs. That's a product that mostly doesn't work. Sold at a price that exists purely to move it before the buyer figures that out. Then the relabel game, which is the single biggest trap in this whole market. There's an entire category of outboards sold under rotating, invented brand names. Spida, Kalon, Gloria, a dozen others that surface and vanish within a season. Here's what's actually happening. The same engine, off the same line in the same factory, gets a different brand name printed on the cowl depending on what the importer feels like that month. One importer who tested this bought direct from a Chinese factory and immediately peeled the logos off because the brand name was meaningless. Then joked about replacing them with his own Yamaha clone decals. When the name on an engine can change between shipments, you aren't buying a brand. You're buying a mystery with no company behind it, no warranty that means anything, and no parts. The price looks like a steal because it is, in the sense that it's about to steal from you. That's the full ranking, top to bottom. But the order isn't the valuable part. The reason behind the order is. And it's a single question that quietly decided every placement on this list. Here's what almost nobody selling these engines will tell you. The brands worth the risk and the brands that aren't are separated by one thing. Can you get parts? And can a normal mechanic fix it? That's the whole secret. Parsun ranked at the top not just because the engines are decent, but because they're built close enough to proven Japanese designs that the parts physically cross over. There's a single fuel pump body, part number 369-03304-0, that fits Tohatsu, Parsun, and HDX engines, all three interchangeably. One $40 part, 3 different brands. That kind of interchangeability is the entire difference between a cheap repair and a dead engine. When a Chinese outboard shares its DNA with a Japanese one, the whole global parts ecosystem quietly becomes available to you, and any competent mechanic recognizes what he's holding. When the engine runs a proprietary design that copies nothing and shares nothing, one failed experiment with no replacement turns the entire motor into scrap metal. This is why the rebadge reality cuts both ways, and it's worth understanding because it protects you. Mercury, one of the most trusted names on the water, rebadges Tohatsu engines for several of its smaller models and sells them under the Mercury label. That's rebadging done right. A proven Japanese engine with a different sticker, full parts, and dealer support behind it. The no-name Chinese relabels are the exact same sticker trick run in reverse. A mystery engine with a label that means nothing and nothing behind it. The label was never the point. The engineering underneath and the parts pipeline behind it was always the entire game. So from now on, read every Chinese outboard listing the same way. Ignore the brand name. Ignore the horsepower claim. Because you already know it's optimistic. Ask 2 questions instead. Is this engine derived from a known Japanese design? And can I get parts for it where I actually live? 2 yeses, you might have a smart buy. A no on either one, and it doesn't matter how good the number looks, because the morning it breaks is the morning it becomes a lawn ornament. So here's the honest math to take with you. Chinese outboards aren't junk, and they aren't bargains. They're a tool that fits a specific person. If you're handy, on a budget, running the engine for light or backup duty, and you stick to a Parsun or a small Hangkai with parts you can actually source, you'll likely be happy. And you'll have pocketed $1,500 to $2,000 over the Japanese equivalent. That's a real saving for the right buyer. But run the real comparison before you commit. A new Parsun 60 saves you maybe $1,500 to $2,000 against a new Mercury 60. For that same money, you could buy a clean used Yamaha or Mercury 60 with a known service history, full parts support, and a dealer who will actually touch it. New Chinese versus used Japanese at the same price is the comparison that decides it. And for a lot of buyers, the used Japanese engine is the smarter call, because it holds its resale value while a Chinese outboard is worth almost nothing the day after you buy it. The cheapest engine on the water is worthless. The first morning it won't start, and nobody can fix it. Buy the parts pipeline, not the price tag.